Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. ICRC presents a new way to help families and the community cope with and manage the challenges of aging and caregiving with a form of audio respite. The Inland Caregiver Corner podcast is made to provide insight on caregiving and aging, stories of encouragement, and tips on self-care. This information is coming from employees of ICRC, those who assist seniors, and members of the community. We have our guest speaker here today, which is Darlene Merkler. Darlene is part of the Education and Outreach Coordinator here for ICRC. So Darlene, thank you for being a co-host with me today.
You're welcome.
So like we had mentioned, the month of April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. So the whole month of April is dedicated to Parkinson's awareness. And this podcast that we're doing today is also just to bring some awareness. We're going to talk about it. I'm not an expert at Parkinson's. Darlene, I don't know if you identify as
No,
expert.
not at all.
It's just from what we've learned here at ICRC, what we've encountered, what I've seen here at the agency, some of my personal stories.
Yes.
So we're going to share just a little bit. Hopefully this brings some insight to some of our listeners that are listening, whether they are experiencing Parkinson's themselves, they know someone, or maybe it's just a topic that they want to learn more of. You never know, one day if you do run into someone who is experiencing these Parkinson's symptoms. Okay, so we'll start off just by what is Parkinson's disease. I know some people abbreviate it with PD. Darlene, do you want to start with what you know of or what you're aware of with what's Parkinson's disease?
Yes. Parkinson's disease is a neurological disease that mainly affects movement, but also can affect cognition. I think a lot of times people think that everyone with Parkinson's disease also has cognitive deficit, but that's not true. Some people just have the neurological issues that mainly affect movement, but it actually results from destruction of nerve cells in part of the brain called the basal ganglia. You may have heard that before, but that's what it is.
And I know when I started here at ICRC, when I started learning more about dementia in general, and they were like, oh, Parkinson's disease is a type of dementia. It kind of took me a while to grasp the idea that Parkinson's was a type of dementia, because if I'm right, correct me if I'm not, but they say that, like you said, sometimes you have that cognitive impairment, but sometimes it's more just motor skills that the symptoms appear first, rather than the memory loss or, any other activities that the person is doing.
I wouldn't really say that Parkinson's disease is a type of dementia. Because not everyone who gets Parkinson's disease has memory loss. There is a type of dementia called Lewy body dementia, and that has Parkinson's-like symptoms and the memory loss. So that would be a type of dementia that sort of looks like Parkinson's disease, but Parkinson's disease itself, I've never heard it described as a type of dementia.
Maybe I know that when we talk about it with like the umbrella, we put it under that umbrella term.
I've seen Lewy body dementia under that umbrella of dementia, but not Parkinson's disease. But I can see why you would think that, because most cases of Parkinson's, there is some memory deficit at some point in the disease. But the main symptoms are it mainly affects movement. Like people with Parkinson's sometimes will shuffle their feet and have involuntary body movements. That's the main characteristics of Parkinson's. But for some reason, a lot of people think that it also includes dementia, but not everyone with Parkinson's has dementia. Not everybody is affected that way.
I have heard that. I have heard that not everyone who has who has Parkinson's will get dementia, but I think I've seen a statistic where like it increases your chances. So if you do have Parkinson's, you have an increased chance of dementia.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think it's interesting that and it's a very hard disease to diagnose. Uh, and by the time people notice a change in their motor symptoms, they've already lost about 50% of their dopamine producing cells, and that's what it causes the Parkinson's, is those cells die. And so by the time that they have symptoms, they're really well into the disease process, which it's too bad that they don't have something like with, I guess it's the same thing with other dementias too. By the time someone realizes something's happening, they're well into the disease process, which is unfortunate because then the symptoms can't be treated as early.
Do you know if Parkinson's is a little bit more like hereditary? So if someone in your family has Parkinson's, maybe you have a higher chance?
I don't think that there's any proof to that as far as being hereditary. I don't know any families where there's more than one person who in the family who has it. I'm sure there are cases where that might happen, but I don't think there's any statistics that show that it's hereditary.
I was just looking for a little loophole or something that can maybe help, like if,
Yeah,
to get, I don't even know the tests that are out there, but to maybe be
because
more
like
aware of the tremors or the other symptoms that are present.
yeah, because like with Huntington's disease, that's hereditary, and there are things you can do to be tested for it and so forth. But trying to see if there are some medications that help with the symptoms, and once it's diagnosed, but as far as early treatment, that there's not too much.
So
Some
what
of the
are
some of the symptoms, though, that you may not relate to Parkinson's, but these are Parkinson's symptoms: restlessness and anxiety, which a lot of us have that anyway, you know. And then there's this thing called dystonia of the eyelids, and that's where the eyelids close. And for people with Parkinson's, if they're on the medication that is for Parkinson's, that will help with that. But as the medication wears off, then that comes back. Also, difficulty writing and excessive sweating. So those are problems that you wouldn't necessarily say, "Oh, yeah, that's a Parkinson's symptom," because it could be something else as well.
And I know that you have, so I was reading, I was following up on your PowerPoint. So Darlene, anyone listening, Darlene does monthly workshops to caregivers and non-caregivers. You don't necessarily have to be one, even though there are caregiving related topics. But in your PowerPoint, you have a slide that says non-motor symptoms. And when I was reading it, I was actually intrigued because there was some like constipation or loss of smell that was on the non-motor symptoms that I never heard of or never associated with Parkinson's.
Right. Swallowing difficulties, speech problems, and then those things I think you think of as Parkinson's. But yeah, even depression, fatigue, and I didn't know about this one until I was preparing the PowerPoint, but flakiness of skin around the nose and forehead. And I had never heard of that before, but those are really unusual symptoms that you wouldn't necessarily connect with Parkinson's disease.
And I mean, that's one of the main reasons that we offer these workshops to our caregivers and non-caregiver listeners. Anyone who's interested in just the workshops, we're always trying to educate. Like I said, I never knew of this. Darlene, you said you never knew, or not that we
No,
never knew, but it's sometimes there's new information also that we would have never thought
exactly.
of.
Yeah, some of this I had known, but some of it I didn't. I was really glad to learn about it because before I prepared this PowerPoint, I didn't know a whole lot about Parkinson's disease. But there is a common medication that people take. I had heard of Cinemet before, and that's a combination of levodopa and carbidopa. But they some people can also just be prescribed the levodopa, and anyone who's taking care of someone with Parkinson's probably or they're probably familiar with these medications. But those Cinemet I had heard of before, as I mentioned, from caregivers that I had talked to. And that's supposed to be a really effective medication, especially for the involuntary body movements, and because which can cause falls and things like that. So Cinemet and levodopa. And what that does is it replenishes the depleted dopamine in the brain, which is what happens when somebody has Parkinson's. So at least they have made some advancements on the medications. And there's also a surgery that I know one of the caregivers I was working with, his wife had gotten it before, and it's called deep brain stimulation, or DBS, and has something to do with the electrical wiring in your brain, and they adjust that. It's kind of like when you have a heart um, monitor, or not a monitor, but what are those, pacemaker. It's similar to that, in that, but it regulates the brain instead of the heart. And this one gentleman that was in my class said it really worked well for his wife. It mainly works on the motor fluctuations. So if somebody is really having a lot of problems with the involuntary body movements, it sounds like this might be something to talk to the neurologist about. And
I
the company that manufactures this deep brain stimulation, they're saying that 80,000 patients have had that surgery worldwide. So it must be pretty effective.
And I'm sure that hopefully there's some advancement. Like you said, there has been a lot since, so just even from previous years, 2, 3, 4 years ago, there's also, every day there's more advancements. But I know it's important not just for the caregiver, but for the person themselves who has the Parkinson's. Like you said, to work directly with their doctors, seek, if there's other treatments, if there's other medications. Sometimes what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone. Um, but or if maybe the
True.
doctor doesn't know. Like that brain stimulation I've never heard of, but
Mm-hmm.
if I need to do more research about it, or if something were to happen either to me or my family member, I know that I want to ask my doctor for a little bit more advice or maybe even more information.
Right. And then, as far as non medical treatments, there have been studies that show that recreational physical activities like walking, swimming, dance, yoga, and Tai Chi can help a lot with for people that have Parkinson's disease.
I've
I
heard,
think,
I don't remember where it was, but it was almost like Tai Chi, and it's almost like a combination of like boxing. They say that it stimulates your brain and it's really effective for anyone with Parkinson's because of the movement, because of the physical activity. But then there's also a lot of brain stimulation.
right. And not only is it to because of the movement, but also usually those things are enjoyable. And I think that's true with any of us as we're aging, but especially if you have forms of dementia or Parkinson's, any of those kinds of things. That the I always say to the caregivers, the bottom line is let's give the best quality of life that we can to the person we're taking care of, the person who has the disease. So staying active, having fun, learning new skills, that's all good for the brain.
That's good for the caregiver too. So it's not just so like their daily routine has a little bit of fun in it also.
Exactly. And some variety, you know.
Um, so I do want to, I know that right now we were talking about different things. I remember it just, I was having my notes on the Parkinson subject, and I remember back, this was years ago when I was an intern. Um, I actually we have an OT program, we have an occupational therapy program for our caregivers and the care receiver. And I remember one time someone called, it was one of my old clients who had asked for an assisted device for their family member. And then at that point, I started Googling more and we started getting more resources. And it's something so simple as I think I remember, I don't remember exactly the order that I made for him, but it was something as simple as like a weighted plate and like a weighted fork and spoon that we were able to, I think we bought it off of Amazon. We shipped it straight to their house and they were able to use it the next day. And something as simple as that, the person with Parkinson's, the care receiver, was able now to have lunch and dinner on their own, not on their own, but like they were able to feed themselves. And now the activity of lunchtime or mealtime with their loved ones or with their caregiver, it went back to an enjoyable family moment rather than a task for the caregiver to have to, oh, it's feeding time, let me feed, the person that I'm caring for.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And there are so many assistive devices that make life so much easier for people who are impaired this way.
So it's probably a little shameless plug, but if we do have assisted devices, we do offer assisted devices. It depends on our funding. But if we're able to get anything or we're able to make a purchase for you, let us know. Sometimes it's also, we don't know, like again, when I started, I didn't know about purchasing a weighted spoon or a weighted fork, a weighted bottle. Even the way that the bottle is shaped is different so that they can actually have like a good hold on it and they're able to bring the cup or the plate to their closer to them so that they can feed easily. So if you're not aware, like I was not, sometimes talking to your caseworker and just asking like what different resources or what do you recommend or what tips and tricks do they have. Sometimes some people have tips and tricks that we don't think of.
And I know they have the plates that have a lip around the edge so the person can scoop the food up easier. There's just all kinds, just a little thing like that can give independence to somebody who, like you were saying, what they were being fed before and now they can feed themselves, And I think just reaching out for resources like our support group, our Parkinson's support group, that's been going for quite a while. I'm sure they share a lot of ideas in there. And then there's also, if you just go to parkinson.org, that's how you can reach the Parkinson Foundation, and they have all kinds of resources on there as well. But I would definitely start with your family consultant. And I believe our support group's the second Thursday of the month at 10 a.m.
Yeah, so second Thursday from 10 to 12. This support group is actually our only support group that we allow both the caregiver and the care receiver to attend, because we know how important it is for both the caregiver and the person they're caring for. So in this situation, the person with Parkinson's, to attend the support group, we need support for both of them. So yeah, like Darlene said, it's the second Thursday, 10 to 12. Right now we're virtual, but hopefully soon, one day, we'll be able to come back in person. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Darlene. I don't know if you have any more comments, any more maybe, I don't know, suggestions, comments, concerns.
I think we covered it, but just talking to caregivers who are now caring for someone with Parkinson's and asking them what would they advise to somebody who just got a diagnosis. Because I have a lady who one of our clients attends my workshops and support group, and she's been caring for her mother, and now her husband's been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So she's brand new to all of this. And so I've said to people who have been caring for someone with Parkinson's, what would you suggest? And they say the best thing you can do is to get prepared, to do research, attend the support groups, go online and research whatever you can, and be prepared, because there's going to be a financial impact, and find out what your insurance covers, and manage your expenses, and get powers of attorney and all of those kinds of things, because you might have to change your home environment, and you have to also, as a caregiver, take care of yourself and look out for your own health and your own emotional well-being. So I think those are all good suggestions. And by contacting your family consultant, they can lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's right. And even if you're not yourself going through something, like I said, you never know when sometimes it's your neighbor, or it's someone at church, or, someone you run into. If you know that they have Parkinson's, or that they've been diagnosed, even if they've been diagnosed for quite a while, sometimes there's new resources, there's new information that we can share with each other.
I was really surprised that there are 50 to 60,000 new cases of Parkinson's every year in the United States. That's a lot.
I saw, I think it was in your notes, and it said that that's probably also an understatement of a number, because of like the people aren't reporting it, or they're not getting diagnosed properly. So it's still a big number though. It's still a big number.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So please reach out and let us help you.
If you want any more information, like Darlene says, don't hesitate to reach out to the office. If you don't have a family consultant or a social worker here on staff, we can assign you one. Our number to the office is 1-800-675-6694, or you can visit us online at inlandcaregivers.org. Again, if you're interested in that support group, that's the Parkinson's disease support group, the second Thursday of the month, each month from 10 to 12. That calendar, or more information on that, is on our website. Again, that's inlandcaregivers.org. And lastly, thank you, Darlene, for being my co-host today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
If yourself, a neighbor, friend, relative, or colleague needs resources with aging or caregiving, please contact Inland Caregiver Resource Center at 1-800-675-6694. Add us on Facebook at facebook.com/ICRC1985, and follow us on Instagram at Inland Caregivers. Like and subscribe to Inland Caregiver Resource Center on YouTube, and of course, check out our website at www.inlandcaregivers.org. Keep listening to Inland Caregiver Corner for information and resources as we continue to cope with and manage the challenges of aging and caregiving together. We're Inland Caregiver Resource Center, and remember to continue to care for yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Take care.